stage at Sony Picture Studios, this is Jeopardy! Let's
Welcome to a special edition of ESBR News. I'm your host, Gary Blodgett, chairman of the board of the ESBR School, and with me today I have two special guest hosts.
Hello, I'm Cadance Taylor, and I'm in 8th grade.
Hi, I'm Kaelin Kennedy. I'm in 10th grade.
And today we have a special guest with us that some of you may have heard of recently. Most of you know that the game Jeopardy has been on for a long time. In fact, I looked it up. It's been on since 1964. And in Vermont, there have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people who have been on that show. Vermont has probably not had that many. Maybe our guests will know how many. But there's probably even a fewer number of guests who have on Jeopardy who have won one match on Jeopardy, but to win 3 matches on Jeopardy and to be a Ludlow alumni from Black River from the year 2017, and at only 23 years old, I believe it's only 23 years old, we are very pleased to have Jake DeArruda with us today on our show.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Welcome, Jake.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
Likewise.
Welcome to the show. Glad we could have you. How are you feeling today?
I feel great. You know, it's always, I always said my silly little dream, as it were, it started at home in Vermont. I lived in Ludlow, Mount Holly, and Plymouth for more than 15 years. So it's always great to talk to folks back home and check back in with you folks every once in a while.
So today we are going to ask you some questions from the students of ESBR. We have 3 categories. We have life outside of Jeopardy. Emotions towards Jeopardy, and strategies for Jeopardy.
All right.
Yeah.
So Jake, you get to pick which category you'd like to pick first.
Let's do life outside Jeopardy first, please.
For $100.
For the values, okay, $100.
What do you like to do during your free time?
Yeah, so to pay my way through college, I worked in a sports memorabilia store, basically. I've been a memorabilia collector my whole life. I do baseball cards, autographs, various kinds, magazines and books, things like that. So I love collecting memorabilia. I'm fortunate to have a few friends in surrounding towns where I am now who are also interested in trading and just hanging out and talking about memorabilia. So that's something we do. I play golf a little bit on the outside. I'm trying to get back into it. I took a few years away from the game, but do that. And I like, ever since I've moved out on my own, I kind of like puttering around the house, just doing little home projects, cleaning and something like that.
I see in the background some baseballs.
Yeah, a few of them were picked up from my from my job, and a couple were picked up along the way. One of them is actually a baseball signed by Ken Jennings, who was gracious enough to do something for me while I was out in LA. So maybe that'll be how I spend some of the winnings, filling up that case.
Yeah, another category?
Let's do let's do strategies for 100, please.
Looking back on it, is there a point where you think you should have strategized better?
Interesting. You know, the one thing that I regret not maybe practicing for or considering as much before going out was discipline on the buzzer. If you go through the Jeopardy archive and look at my games more closely, you'll notice that I had a bunch of wrong answers at times. I think I had a game with 4 wrong answers, 5, 2. That's something that I didn't really think about as much as I should have. It almost cost me in my second game. I was very close to having what they call a runaway game, where I would not have been caught entering Final Jeopardy. So, the round would have been inconsequential basically, and I almost cost myself because I made a few bad guesses and slipped up a few times. So buzzer discipline, I think, is the one thing that I maybe could have done a little bit differently. So, yeah. What's that middle category? Emotions toward Jeopardy for 100, please.
Were you nervous when you got there, and what made you calm down?
You have to go to the bathroom a bunch of times. At least it feels that way. That's really when you walk onto the stage, or when you're sitting around all day and watching all the other games play. Okay, crap. Maybe we play this next game. Maybe we don't, and what have you. You wait till your name gets called. Other than that, I trusted the preparation that I put in. I knew that I would have a chance against anybody if things fell my way. And once you get up on stage and the game starts, you don't really worry about that sort of thing too much. You just sort of zone in and you play your game, and any of the nerves kind of subside at that point, I think. Let's go back to life outside Jeopardy for 2.
What's your favorite color?
Well, it has to be maroon. Lucky BR maroon, always. I like green and black and purple as well. Purple is one of the main colors of my alma mater, Stonehill College. So, but we always start with maroon first.
Jake?
Stonehill College in Eastern Massachusetts. Yep, about 20 minutes from where I live now. Go back to emotions for 2.
Okay. What sparked your interest to be on Jeopardy?
Wow. There's a number of different things. I think the couple of big things, there was a sports Jeopardy spinoff that aired when I was in high school that I kind of found my way towards at some point. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I found a couple articles about the Big Show the next year, and I started watching after that. I kind of started reading more articles and learned more of the mechanics of the show and started watching every day. And the articles that I read sort of treated Jeopardy like a sport, right? They talked about Ken Jennings' 74-game winning streak and how it might never be beaten. And I thought, oh, interesting. This is really kind of like an offshoot of a sport, right? That happens to be on TV. So that's kind of how I looked into it at first. And then another thing that really helped was in my junior year at BR, one of the teachers restarted the started the Black River Scholars Bowl team, which is basically trivia competitions against other schools. And that kind of helped kind of suck me in a little bit. And after that, when I graduated and I wasn't really playing sports anymore, I started to continue to look at Jeopardy as a sport. It's an achievable goal for myself. It's something I can do to, sort of take up a little bit of my time each day. And it's a healthy thing too. I've learned a lot through the process, and learned a lot about myself and the world around me too. So kind of not a good answer, but
no, great answer.
What else have I not done? The right-hand category for 2. Forgive me. Strategies for 2. There we go.
How did you prepare, and what study skills did you use?
So preparing to be on the show, in some ways, you can't really do it all at once. Like, it's a lifetime sort of thing. When I was little, I had my nose in books about the U.S. presidents and sports and that sort of thing. So, I listened to lots of different music growing up, and in some ways that was sort of the foundation. But when I actively started trying out for Jeopardy, I made use of, books with different lists of information in them, basically, right? Kings and queens and world capitals and state capitals and, food and magazines and newspapers and things like that. There are certain lists of topics that you can review that will help you out. And, I did a little bit each day. I downloaded some flashcard apps too. There were a lot of different tactics that I employed. that helped out. But it was over a long period of time and kind of gradually sort of thing. But I will say in the 3 weeks leading up to me going out to LA to tape, what I tried to make use of the most was apps that let you simulate using the buzzer, right? That helped a lot. You can try and get a feel for what timing the buzzer might look like. And if you're curious, I'll tell you more about that later. But worked on that a bit. Studied wagering strategy. That's something that a lot of contestants can do to really help themselves out. More mechanics of the game stuff that I tried to review in the weeks leading up to going out. So,
you must have a pretty good. You must have a pretty good memory, though, too, Jake, to remember all these lists.
And some of that, I think some of that's natural. You can train yourself to have a better memory, I think, or at least I believe that way. But I think in some ways you kind of just have to have a brain that remembers information. And I always have, fortunately. I was the I was the kid in kindergarten who knew all the U.S. presidents in order, right? Like that's kind of weird for anyone to know, much less someone in kindergarten. So in some ways, I've always had a nose for it, but for information. But a little bit of concerted effort and a little natural skill, I think, mixed together and worked in my favor. So let's do life outside of Jeopardy for 3.
What do you think you would do with the money you've won?
A lot of people have been asking this, and I'm still not certain myself, but I bought a car not long ago, so I don't really need to upgrade a car. I live really frugally. I think what I'm just going to do is tuck it away in a savings account and put it down, save it for a house down payment later on. Obviously, you mentioned I'm still only 23, so I have a long ways to go before I need to worry about that sort of thing. But putting $40,000, $50,000 into a savings account right now is going to be a huge help for me down the line. So that's going to be most of it, I think. And, I'll try to have a little fun. I mentioned filling up the baseball case. I may spend a little bit on memorabilia, and maybe I don't really like taking vacations, but maybe a vacation or two. So we'll see. Let's do emotions for 3.
Did you ever feel like giving up, and what made you keep going?
No, I never felt like giving up toward this goal. I think you have to realize that if you're trying out for the show, the odds are so stacked against you, right? I feel fortunate to have even gotten on when I did at all, honestly. You have to realize that there are tens of thousands of people that take the first round test every year to get on the show, and that there are, they pare it down to a few thousand who get to actually audition in front of the contestant coordinators that they have. And then there's just a lot of luck involved in getting picked. So, in some ways you kind of have to have the mentality that I'm not going to give up if I want to actually do this. But, I always knew that this is something I'd try, and, the longer I keep at it, the better I get, and it better serve me for later. But I never really felt like giving up through the process. I always knew that I could make it happen. I just needed to see it through all the way. So.
Had you tried to get on it before a bunch of times then?
So I took 3 first round tests in college. I did one my freshman year, one my junior year, and then one in the spring of my senior year, which ultimately led to me getting on the show. It's a 3-part audition process. I had taken the first round test 2 or 3 times prior, but I had never been through the actual second and third rounds of the audition process before I only had to go through it once before getting called on the show. It's not uncommon to have to take the tests and auditions 2, 5, 10 times before you get on the show. Even some of the best champions will say, it took me 5, 10, 20 years to get on the show. So. What else do we have? Strategies for 3, I think, right? We haven't done that one yet.
Strategies again.
We don't have any more.
Huh? No more.
No more.
You can go to
No more.
No more on the strategies. Although, if you would like to talk about the button, you had mentioned that, or or also the money strategies of how much to bet on the dailies, doubles, or at the final Jeopardy.
Certainly. Yeah. So I'll start with the buzzer, I guess. A lot of people might not realize that if one person rings in, more often than not, there are multiple people that are ringing in for the same clue, right? So a lot of the game is getting in when the buzzer is activated, right? So the buzzer is activated by a gentleman who sits off to the side on the stage, and he presses the button when the clue's finished being read. And then what happens is a row of signal lights activates along the board. It's not viewable to viewers at home, but it is to contestants who are on stage. Once those lights come on, ding, you can try to buzz in as best you can. And then whoever gets in first gets to give a response. So a lot of it is just learning how to time the buzzer. And that's why I practiced the using buzzer apps and simulators before I went out there. And it helped a lot, right? My buzzer speed was fairly good. The advanced stats will tell you. But a lot of the people know a lot of the answers a lot of the time, and it's just a matter of who gets in on the buzzer first. And then as for wagering, sometimes you kind of have to have a feel for it. You have to go in, okay, I'm going to play aggressive and I'll bet big when the opportunities arise. Sometimes if you like a category, you'll be more inclined to bet big, right? I think as the game has gone on and you see more people winning 10, 20, 30 games, you see that you have to be more aggressive to win these days on the show. So I think that wagering strategy is very, very important, and it can help, it can help a lot. In Final Jeopardy, a lot of the times, I won't get into wagering theory. It's very, very complicated, and it took me many years to sort of figure out on my own too. But when you're in the lead, the goal is to bet to beat the other person, the person in second place, if they bet everything and are correct, right? So I think you saw that in my second game, for example. I had to wager $801 to cover second place if he bet everything and was correct, right? So that's what I did. I wagered 803 technically. But that's the goal for Final Jeopardy wagering, at least. And again, there's a lot more to it that I won't explain. I don't want to confuse the whole audience. Like I said, it took me many, many years to figure out the ins and outs of that. But
well, you did really well. I noticed a number of the times that you went all in on the double, on the daily double there. So you were pretty aggressive.
And that's the goal. You mentioned I'm only 23. I'm probably not going to know as much as a 40-year-old standing next to me, right? So you can make up for any knowledge deficit that you have by using strategy to your advantage, right? Betting big and actively searching for daily doubles, right? Those are more common strategies now than they were when I started watching the game, 5, 8, 10 years ago. So.
Yeah, I can remember a long time ago, people used to just go right down the category, right? Yeah. And I didn't see that at all in your shows. So that must have been a strategy again.
Yeah, it was concerted strategy. There have been so many contestants in recent years that actively they map out how they want to move around the game board, and it's not up and down. The way to build up your bank the fastest is by working the bottom row first and then hitting a daily double when you have money to do so, right? And then you can bet a lot or keep a daily double away from your opponents, perhaps, if that's part of your strategy. But the game's changed in a lot of ways, like I said, since I started watching, and I think maneuvering around the board is one of the ways that it's one of the things that's really changed in recent years.
How was the food in the green room?
Oh.
I'd like to know how the food was in the green room.
Yeah, that's actually that's a really good question. So Sony famously they have a famous commissary for fans of the show. It's somewhere in the Jeopardy stage where they serve you lunch and things like that. Now in the COVID era, it's a little bit different. I had to take a COVID test the day before I taped. And I asked the contestant coordinator, are we meeting in this parking garage? And she said, yeah, the Sony commissary is off limits. So we ate lunch in a parking garage that day, and they prepackage certain meals. I don't remember what all was served, but it was really exotic stuff that I don't eat. I do remember there was a little salad meal. They served a little salad and they gave you a cookie and a Coke and water and things like that. There was also, I think there were I keep thinking steak meal, but there was no steak on the menu. There were like chicken meals and things like that. I don't really remember truthfully, but you know, it was okay. I only got to eat one lunch on set, so the salad was just fine. It's about as, you know, whatever you expect a salad to be. Yeah.
So Jake, you know, I didn't realize this, but they don't just tape one show a day.
No, they do not. They tape 5 episodes in one day. So whatever you will see in 1 week was all taped in one day, more likely than not. When I was out there in early December, they taped 15 episodes over 3 days, right? So my first game was the 5th show taped of the first day of taping that week, right? So then I came back the next day and played the final 3 games that I played, 6, 7, and 8. Then there were 2 games after that, and then there was another day of taping the next day. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they were taping episodes of Jeopardy. And then they tape Wheel of Fortune on the same lot, so they kind of alternate taping weeks for those 2 shows because they reuse a lot of the same staff, makeup people, and so on. So.
The lady that won, how long did she stay on after that? Did she win a couple more? I don't remember.
Patty?
Yeah, Patty.
Patty lost the next day to a British gentleman with long hair. The British gentleman won 4 games. So he won the last 2 of the second day, and then he won the first 2 of the next taping day.
Yeah. Well, I think you've given these guys some strategies for if they'd ever like to be on the show.
Yeah.
And we're very, very proud of you for what you accomplished and for mentioning us back here in Ludlow, Vermont.
Well, of course, no, I appreciate it and thank you. And you know, I had asked before going out, you know, hey, can we use the originally from Vermont? It was very important to me to you know, be mentioned as from Vermont. I, you know, was born in Massachusetts and I live here now, but you know, I told you this little dream of mine started at, you know, BR and the elementary schools that I attended up in the area there, and you know, still feels like home, even though I've, you know, been away for several years now. So.
It is my pleasure to introduce the class of 2017 salutatorian, Jake DeArruda.
Breathe in, breathe out, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 day at a time. Knowledge is just as much defined by your ability to think, critically and not. Identifying and acting upon bias in the world, being aware of your surroundings, realizing how quickly your time goes by, how quickly you need to take action in life, especially when it involves your dreams and goals and ambitions in the world around you. I was watching Jeopardy the other day, and one of the contestants in the interview segment said that he turned down a job with the NSA to write plays for a living. I found that interesting because there are a lot of other people whose stories are similar to that. Myron Rolle turned down a possible 10-year NFL career to accept a Rhodes Scholarship, and now he's going to be a neurosurgeon. A guy named Mike Lee turned down a job on Wall Street to be a professional boxer. He's undefeated, by the way. To learn, you must listen to yourself. You are you, and I am I. The world can tell you what to do, but the world can't make you listen. If anyone shuts you up or stomps on your dreams, like people have for me, use the skepticism and the pessimism as your motivation. You'll show them all in the end what they're missing. And you better believe I'll do the same. Thank you.
And I will also say, I know you mentioned this at the start of the show, Gary. As to my knowledge, there are only 2 Vermonters that have won more than I have on Jeopardy. Yeah, there are only 2 that I'm aware of. One of them was a college champion many years ago, and another was a 4-day champion around the same time. So not a lot of Vermonters do get on the show. And
No, not a lot, and not many people get on the show at all, and not many people do as well as you do.
Yeah.
You did. We're very proud of you.
thank you.
Pat, you have another question?
How hard was it to like keep his mouth shut and not talk about this leading up to it? It was a
That's true.
more than a month that he had to wait before.
That's
it aired.
right. That's right. You had to hold on to this.
It was close to 2 months. It's kind of funny. So I went out there with a friend of mine who also was a BR graduate. The 2 of us went out to LA together and we were the only two people that knew what happened, aside from the people that were there in the studio. My mom, dad, and my brother, they knew that I was going out there. They helped me, book the trip and all that, but they did not know the results until the first show aired. Not even my family, nope. And some of my extended family didn't know that I was going to be on the show until the week of. My mom and dad were like, "Yeah, we'll let them figure it out on their own." So we really kept it under lock and key. I know, it's pretty easy for me. I work from home a lot of the time, so I don't really see a lot of people. And a couple people knew that I was going on vacation, but they didn't really think to ask why, and I didn't really give them anything to think about until a couple weeks before. So.
Do you want to give a shout out to who went out with you?
Yeah, Aaron Merrill. Hi, Aaron. I don't know if he'll watch this eventually, but yeah, Aaron was great. He was my little navigator, and he helped me book all the Uber trips that we made. And he actually had a really underrated part of the. He was a very important piece of the little vacation because he made sure that we did touristy stuff. Right, we had fun, not just focusing, going on the show. So that was cool. And thanks to my mom and my dad and Luke as well for all their help through all of this as well. It's been, gotten so many kind words and congratulations from folks at work and family and classmates here and folks that I knew in college and high school and elementary school. It's just been it's been incredible that this little thing brought a lot of people together. Really happy about that.
Well, if you get back up in the area, we would love to have you visit the school and walk the old halls again at ESBR with Black River when you were there. So that concludes another edition of ESBR News with our guest hosts, Kaelin Kennedy, Cadance Taylor, and in the booth, Theos Scott. Am I pronouncing Theo's last name correct?
I think so.
I think so. And our special guest, Jake DeArruda, who is a big-time champion for us from Black River and from the area and Jeopardy. Thanks, Jake, so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.